To Top Stories live on Joy 99.7 FM, also live on Joy News TV. We are launching today. Welcome here on the show. The top story today, Kennedy Japan is in the news again. If you remember, he made some comments that triggered a lot of controversy. When some people say he was engaging in unnecessary ethnocentric comments, some say, well, it was justified if you look at the context. And if indeed you just heard his lawyer and former Attorney General say he was speaking in a certain context. We'll be speaking shortly, getting a legal opinion on all this from Mr. Abochi, who will be joining us shortly on the line as we do some more analysis and really ask the question if what happened today is in any way a breach of the bond of good behavior imposed on him by the courts when this went before it. We'll be examining that in detail shortly. You're listening to Top Story on Joy 99.7 FM and Joy News TV. We're coming to you live from 355 Farnover Street. My name is Evans Mensah. I'm told right now that Mr. Abochi is joining me on the line. Thank you, sir, for your time here on Top Story live on Joy News TV. We just finished speaking to Mr. Kennedy Japan's lawyer and former Attorney General Ayikwe Otu. He believed there was a certain context to what his client said today, and so you can pardon him. Will you pardon him from where you said as a law lecturer, understanding what a bond of good behavior means?
Well, I am unable to speak to the detail of what he said because to be honest with you, I have no really take of what he said. But if you ask me to explain what the bond of good behavior means within the context of being given bail, it's simply to say that it's a condition on which the bail is based, for which cause your bail could be forfeited if you are deemed to have acted in breach of the bond. So when you are deemed to be, when you are ordered to be of good behavior, what it basically means is what it says, to be of good behavior. The difficulty of this particular statement is that the ascertainment of whether or not you have actually acted in a manner inconsistent with being of good behavior is at the behest of the court. It is again it is up to the court to determine whether or not a particular conduct constitutes a breach of that bond of being of good behavior. And I think at this point we can all speculate, but it is up to the court to ascertain whether a specific conduct constitutes an infringement of that bond of being of good behavior.
Now, so let me understand something. Who will trigger this court decision, if at all is going to get to that? Will the court itself or somebody need to file a report?
Well, invariably, the prosecution is obviously the opposition, if you want, to the application for bail. And therefore, the one who has any complaint against the bail having been breached is the prosecution. Of course, the court itself can take notice of the fact that a person on bail has breached that bond of being of good behavior. However, whatever happens outside of court is not before the court. And when we say something is not before the court, what it means is that as per the record of the court does not take cognizance, for instance, of media discussions, for instance, of general discussions among the public. And therefore, the court cannot be aware or cannot be deemed to be aware of something that happens outside the purview of the court. So ordinarily, yes, it is the prosecution that can complain, and if the prosecution is able to, again, lead evidence in proof of that, the court can revoke the bail as a person having forfeited the bail on the basis of having acted in a manner which is deemed inconsistent with good behavior.
And let me just emphasize that we are not saying at all that what he did today is indeed in breach of that bond of good behavior. Just asking questions based on suggestions that his comments today may lean in that direction. But let me ask you a question finally, Mr. Abochi. If you are his client, regardless whether or not we have a bond of good behavior imposed on your client, would you encourage him to be speaking in the manner he did on air, reacting to people who might be simply trying to get on his angry side?
Well, two things. If he was my client, as you're asking, and certainly he's not, so I have to be careful of the ethics. And if you're asking me to just, speak quite speculatively, I think ordinarily a person who has been bonded to be of good behavior for having spoken certain words would do well to refrain from speaking words on the subject in question. Therefore, if this particular party in question spoke on radio, he spoke in connection with matters concerning the politics and governance of this country, when a matter is still pending in respect of which is bonded to be of good behavior. Remember, he's not been convicted yet, but the bond of good behavior is in respect of the bail. i.e., you are being granted bail, in the meantime, do not commit a similar offense. I think the advice here clearly would be that as much as he could, he would be advised to refrain from making comments that are similar to the basis for which he was granted bail. But having said that, I need to quickly add that it is important for us to also remember that his constitutional rights cannot be taken away from at any point in time, regardless of the fact that there's actually a pending matter in this regard. And so he is still a free man. Basically, he's not been convicted. And finally, his constitutional right to speech is still active, and therefore he can still continue speaking. But of course, as you said, because there's a thin line between breach of the condition on which he was granted bail and being in compliance, I think he would do well just to be quite guarded, or to refrain entirely from making statements that are similar in context to the basis for which he was granted bail in the first place.
Thank you very much, Kofi Abochi is a lawyer, a law lecturer with GIMPA. And that's it for our show tonight. This is Top Story, and you're listening it live on Joy News TV, also live on Joy 99.7 FM. And my name is Evans Mensah. Top Story for today. Kenneth Japan indeed is in the news again after making some comments today reacting to allegations that his comments earlier that triggered all those ethnocentric controversy indeed inspired some ethnic bloodbath in the central region. That's it for tonight. We'll come your way again on Monday with an edition of Top Story.